It is now 10 minutes after 7 Kenyan time. This is Morning Express, and on a Tuesday, as usual, we have our person of interest. And today, just like I'd mentioned, we have the British High Commissioner to Kenya, and that is Balozi Nic Hailey. Great to have you. And
nice
welcome.
to meet you, Michael.
Pleasure. Great to have you. Now, on person of interest, normally we just look at a 360 of you as an individual. So maybe you can just tell us how your upbringing was, where you grew up. Was it in London, or did you grow up in the UK? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in the west of the UK. This was the 1970s, and when I was born, my parents were both working in London in the rat race, and they decided actually they wanted to do something different. So they went down to the west of England, and they moved into this community, which was basically a self-sufficient community where we grew our own food, we raised our own animals, and we educated kids with special needs. So it was a slightly unconventional upbringing. We didn't earn salaries, we held everything in common, but it was one of those things that people did in the 1970s, but it had a purpose as well. So it was a special needs school. Kids would come in from outside and be educated, kids with mental and physical handicaps. And I guess, I mean, I've lost both my parents since then, but that example of wanting to do something in the world, wanting to make a difference to people, was something that still inspires me.
Still inspires you. What part of the UK was that?
So that was in the west of the UK, near Gloucestershire.
Okay.
And then we moved later to Sussex in the southeast. And if people ask me where I'm from now, I always say London, because I've lived in London ever since I grew up, if you like. But, but my upbringing was very much in the countryside.
All right. Now, as a young boy who was growing up, did you ever, what did you dream and aspire to be?
I think at first it was a fireman. I think for most of us at the time it was a fireman or a train driver. And then later it was a pilot. It was definitely a pilot later. But then I remember reading, I still remember this, I remember reading the newspapers that the key thing if you wanted to be a pilot was you had to be good at video games, because you had to have good hand-eye coordination.
Yes.
And I have rubbish hand-eye coordination. And I mean, we didn't have many video games growing up anyway, but whenever I tried them I was the absolute bottom of the class.
Okay.
So I still remember that moment of, it was quite a sad moment actually, when I realised I probably wasn't going to be a pilot.
So you're saying you're not good at video games?
No, I'm definitely not good at video games. I don't think that really matters now, but it definitely stopped me being a pilot back in the day.
Okay, at least it made you realize that might not be your line.
That was not for me.
Okay,
no.
so at what point did you get into the British government system?
So when I was at university, I was, I guess, like most of us, thinking, what am I going to do when I leave here? And the two things I wanted to do was I wanted to do something that involved living abroad. So I wanted to discover the world, if you like, but I wanted to do that in a way which wasn't just travelling the whole time, where I could actually settle in places and really get to know them and get under the skin of them. I've always loved languages. I've loved my experiences of travelling abroad. So it was either journalism or diplomacy. Okay. And I ended up getting lucky enough and doing diplomacy.
So was it like a calculated move to get into diplomacy, or was it just by chance that you found yourself there?
It was definitely something I wanted to do. As I say, I remember applying for both journalism and diplomatic options, and this was the one that came through. So I was very pleased to do that. But it's an odd job. I don't know whether journalism is the same, but every few years you've got to work out, well, where am I going next? Where do I want to move to? And when you're 21, as I was when I joined, that's kind of easy, because pretty much anywhere. When you've got a wife who's got a job, you've got two kids who need schooling, that just gets, you've got to think that bit harder every time.
Right.
So I've never said to myself, I'm going to do this forever. I've always thought, one posting at a time. Yeah.
What wakes you up every day? What inspires you to do this? I mean, one might imagine that traveling sometimes can be fun, but there are times it can really get to you where you are never quite settled. After several years, then you have to move to another country. So what keeps you going?
I guess, I mean, this probably sounds a bit over the top, but I guess it's kind of wanting to make a difference. I mean, I do think that the way we, obviously one wouldn't always agree with everything that the UK does in its foreign policy. I'm not claiming it's some kind of panacea, but I do think that broadly we're trying to do the right kinds of things in the world, and to be a part of that, to work in a country like this where we are contributing, I think, to the development of Kenya, but we're also building a relationship that benefits people back in the UK. That for me is something that gets me out of bed in the morning. Okay.
And you have two children?
I do.
How old are they?
They're 8 and 10.
8 and 10.
Which I think is the perfect age to come to Kenya.
Okay.
Because they're old enough to remember it. But I remember driving on our first weekend through Nairobi National Park, because we just arrived, we were still unpacking our bags, but I said, we've got to see some animals, we've got to go and because this is what the kids.
This is Africa.
This is what the kids thought about. We've got to do it, right?
Yeah.
So we get in the car and we go to Nairobi National Park, and the look on my 8-year-old's face when she saw the first giraffe walking across the road was just really magical. You know, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy.
Once she could see it live.
She could see it live. You know, she'd seen them in zoos, but giraffes, zebras, rhinos, all of that. And I think that for a kid that age, this is a fantastic, I mean, for an adult too, but it's a real experience, this country, and there's so much to do.
Right. Now, your impression of Kenya before you came, honestly, we'll not crucify you for this, but what was your impression before you came to Kenya? What did you think of Kenya before you came?
So my last job, I was the director for Africa back in the UK. So my job was to be, if you like, the chief advisor on Africa policy back in London to the British government. So I got to know Kenya, well, that's probably wrong. I got to know Nairobi a bit in that job. Okay. It wasn't a job that allowed me to travel around the country because I had 48 countries I was covering and I would travel an awful lot around the African continent. But I got a taste for Kenya at that point. And I guess the taste I got was something to do with connectedness. So there's obviously a lot of painful history in the relationship, and you know, occasionally you have to deal with that, you have to acknowledge it. Right. But I did get a sense already, even before coming here to live, of just how much we're connected to each other. You know, the security and safety of people in Kenya directly affects the security and safety of people in the UK. The British businesses who are established here create an awful lot of jobs in Kenya and an awful lot of jobs back in the UK. The students, the scholars who come and study in both directions, just the number of people I met in London in my last job who were either born in Kenya or had some formative period of their lives over here in Kenya. Okay. And so you get that sense of connection. And
what is your take of Nairobi and Kenya now that you've lived here for the last 3 months?
I must say I'm pretty delighted. I mean, everyone talks about the traffic, right?
How is that traffic compared to London? I mean, when we look in the movies and you see London, you always imagine there's this huge traffic.
Yeah.
You're crossing London Bridge, and what's the comparison?
I never drove in London. I always walked or got the bus, so it was it's quite hard to compare. But I reckon the traffic in London is pretty bad, like in most big cities. The amazing thing about the traffic here, because in London it sort of crawls, here it sort of stops for about 10 minutes, and then suddenly you're going at top speed, and I've not worked out yet. Perhaps you should tell me what actually produces that.
Well, it's a formula that we're still working on in Kenya, so I'm not sure we know it ourselves.
But apart from that, as I say, I've been very welcomed here. The weather is fantastic. I get a lot of emails from my friends back in the UK with pictures of snow and rain and drizzle, and I just email back the screenshot of the iPhone weather forecast for the next 5 days, and that's all I need to say, really. Oh yeah. So no, delighted to be here.
Okay. Have you tried out any Kenyan cuisine?
I have. I have tried out nyama choma in various forms. I'm still getting to grips with ugali, I must say. It's,
You've not quite got used to it.
Well, it needs a lot of sauce, I think. But then I'm used to different things. But no, I love to cook. You can get some great meat here, so I need to work out the secret combinations of things you need to use to make the perfect roast meat. But I'm definitely getting into that. Okay.
Do you have a favorite yet in Kenyan food? Have you tried chapati? I have tried chapati. I like chapati.
I've quite a weakness for roast goat. Okay. And you don't get a lot of goat in the UK. You can get a bit, mainly in the Caribbean quarters of London, where they make it into curry. You don't get a lot of it roasted, so I'm definitely doubling down on that. I'm absolutely liking
it. All right, now, we had some pictures of you in your earlier days, and maybe you can explain to us and just run us through the pictures, Director, if you can. And this, of course, if you're joining us now, is the British High Commissioner to Kenya, and that's Balozi Nic Hailey. So there we have it. Is that you?
That's me, I think, with my mother. That's definitely me with my mother. And that must have been just before my parents left London. Oh, good Lord.
That is still you?
Whoever sent you these photos is going to have a stern talking to you later, Mike. Yeah, that is definitely me as a baby. Yep.
You haven't changed that much, have you?
Thank you. I appreciate that. The finely chiseled features, definitely,
yes,
still there. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. The next picture.
Yes, I have a brother, so he's the younger brother.
Okay, how many are you in your family?
There's just 2 of us, and I think that photo probably says a lot about my relationship with my brother. I was probably a slightly bossy elder child, and as now the father of 2 daughters, I can see the same system being replicated.
Being replicated right there. Where was this? Was that at the beach?
That must be on the beach. So we grew up fairly near to the beach.
All right.
This is me practicing to be a driver. You see?
Yeah, you must have known at some point you'll come to Kenya, so you needed the skills for driving.
Exactly, exactly. And the habit of concentrating with my tongue sticking out is one I haven't lost. I'm afraid.
Okay. Do you still do that even now?
I think I do. You have to ask my wife, but I think I do.
Okay. Yeah, the next picture.
I think that's my 18th birthday.
Wow.
It certainly looks fresh-faced enough.
Yes, and
to be my
very
18th
happy.
birthday.
I wonder what was going on there. Was it your birthday party?
And there must have been a style at the time to have an awful lot of hair, because I certainly do have an awful lot of hair in that photo.
Okay, your 18th birthday. All right. This is a unique car, which we don't have too many in Kenya. I don't think I've even seen one.
No, it is called a Citroen 2CV, and it famously has the crash resistance of a damp cardboard box. So I would not use it in Kenya or anywhere else where there's any danger on the roads.
Was that your first car?
That was my first car.
Oh, wow.
You can drive when you're 17 in the UK. I bought it when I was 16. I worked and saved up the money, and I spent a year kind of taking it apart and putting it back together again. So I was very attached to that car.
Oh, wow.
And then somebody...
Is it still there?
Somebody stole it and joyrode it.
Oh,
I don't know if that's a Kenyan phrase, but they,
where they just
wired it up and just stealed it.
Yeah.
It has a top speed of 72 miles an hour, that car, which is not particularly fast.
Very fast,
and the police couldn't quite believe anyone would want to steal it, but they did. So that was the end of that, I'm afraid.
Okay.
This is me with my daughter a few years ago. This is me. That's me on my wedding day.
Oh, I see. And is that a glass of Coke? I don't think so.
I think that might be a glass of Guinness.
Looks like.
And that's me and my wife on my wedding day.
And what's your wife's
We
name?
haven't changed a bit. So she's called Caroline.
Okay.
She's French. She works for the World Bank here.
Oh, wow.
So
she's working here.
She managed to get a posting here at about the same time as me.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So do you speak French as well?
I do.
You mentioned you love languages. Have you learnt a bit of Swahili?
Kidogo.
Kidogo. Okay. We'll let you off for now. After 3 months, you're doing well.
Well, thank you. I could a few more words, but I need to get stuck into it.
Okay. We have another picture there.
No, so this is the team, this is very recent. This is the team at the High Commission here in Nairobi, and this was the First Lady's run that happened, was it about 10 days ago?
Oh, yes, the First Lady.
So there's a really good team spirit at the High Commission. There's about 300 of us, and there's a lot of us people are active in the community, active in good causes. So I said, well, look, if you sign up to do the run, I'll sponsor you, and I'll sponsor each of you.
Oh, wow.
And so they said, okay, we're going to bankrupt you. We're going to get as many people to sign up as possible. So they developed this thing, Bankrupt the Belozi.
Okay.
And 102 of them signed up.
Wow.
And we raised about 250,000 shillings just from the personnel of the embassy towards the cause. So it was good fun.
That was good.
And this is
did you participate in the run?
This is the end of the race, I think you've got on your screen now.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Slightly to my embarrassment, Bob Godek, who's the American ambassador you might recognize, had run the full 21K. I'm afraid the good Lord did not build me a body for running, so I only managed 5. But in my excuse, I had the Watoto with me, so my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old managed it as well. I didn't think I could.
Well, welcome to Kenya. We are marathon runners, so maybe by the time you finish your time here in Kenya, you'll be doing 41 kilometers.
I will try. I cannot make a promise on that. I promise I will learn more Swahili. I cannot promise I will run 41 kilometers. I'll give it a shot. Okay,
we have another picture there.
That's me with one of your gold medal winners from Kenya, who came along to the High Commission to get us all started.
Okay. All right, remember...
That is a selfie. I've learned that selfies are quite important in Kenya.
Oh, yes, yeah. So I don't know if you have a selfie stick. You'll probably
I don't have a stick. I just have a long arm.
Invest in one. Oh, you have a long arm. Okay, that'll do for now. Okay. We have some of your official pictures there. We have you there with Majority Leader Eden Duale. But, another picture here with...
the Mau Mau Memorial.